What if your dreams weren't just dreams, but warnings? Tonight we're diving deep into the shadows of the subconscious. 3 terrifying true stories where dreams didn't just whisper horror, they bled into reality. In our first story, a young woman moves into an old farmhouse, only to be plagued by chilling nightmares of a voice crying from beneath the floorboards. But when she discovers a sealed trapdoor that wasn't on the blueprints, she realizes the voice wasn't asking for help. It was warning her. Then a man becomes obsessed with a strange phenomenon. His reflection in the mirror is no longer syncing with him. What begins as a subtle quirk spirals into full-blown terror when the reflection starts acting on its own. And when it smiles back, he realizes it's not a reflection at all. It's a prisoner trying to escape. And finally, a college student starts dreaming vividly from the perspective of a girl she's never met. Feeling her fear, running from someone in the woods and drowning in icy water. As the dreams intensify, she uncovers a decades-old murder case and learns that the victim didn't just want justice, she wanted revenge. Each story is darker than the last, each dream more twisted, more real, and by the end, you'll be asking yourself the same question. Are your dreams really yours? Grab a blanket, turn off the lights, and don't look too long in the mirror, because tonight, your mind isn't safe. Story 1. The Dream That Knew the Basement's Secret. The first time Lila had the dream, she chalked it up to stress. She had just moved into the small fixer-upper in upstate Pennsylvania, a quaint little farmhouse surrounded by nothing but whispering trees and brittle grass. The kind of place she thought would be perfect for quiet writing and solitude. She was wrong. In the dream, she stood barefoot in her living room. The walls were a little too tall, stretching like elastic up into a gray mist. The floorboards beneath her feet creaked, not from her weight, but from something moving beneath them. Then came the voice, muffled, garbled, desperate. "Let me out." Lila jolted awake at 3:13 a.m., drenched in sweat, heart hammering. She sat up in bed, clutching the sheets, staring into the dark room. Everything was quiet, too quiet. No traffic, no birds, just a stillness that felt heavy on her chest. She shook it off. New house, old pipes, overactive imagination, writer brain, that's all. The second night, it happened again. Same dream, same room, same creaking. But this time she tried to speak. "Who's there?" she asked, in the dream, her voice echoing like she was inside a cathedral. The voice below the floor hissed, louder this time. "Don't trust the house." When she awoke, the digital clock glowed 3:13 a.m. again. That detail gnawed at her. She couldn't shake it. She made coffee at 4 a.m. and stood in the living room barefoot, trying to recreate the scene. The floorboards were solid, dusty, no signs of anything underneath. She knocked. Nothing hollow. Still the dreams continued. By the 5th night she stopped calling them dreams, because now the bruises started, small ones at first, on her ankles, thighs, arms, circular, purple-blue, like fingers. She hadn't tripped, hadn't bumped anything. She lived alone. The dreams became more vivid. She could hear the walls breathing, the wood beneath her flexing. And the voice? It changed. It didn't sound like it was begging anymore. It sounded amused. "Almost there," it crooned from under the floor. "You're almost ready." By now, Lila had told her best friend, Jade, about it over a FaceTime call. Jade laughed at first, until Lila showed her the bruises. "You think someone's breaking in and hurting you while you sleep?" Jade asked, concern creeping into her voice. "I don't know," Lila said, "but I found something." She flipped the camera around to show the corner of the living room. Lila had pulled up part of the rug, and there, under the boards, she noticed uneven nails, not old ones, recent ones, shiny. She paused the call, grabbed a crowbar, and returned with trembling hands. "Tell me this is a bad idea," she muttered to herself as she jammed the crowbar under the first board. With a loud crack, the board snapped free, and a waft of something foul burst upward. Not rot, not mildew, something worse. She gagged, waved the air, and leaned down. There was a square cut into the subfloor, nearly invisible unless you knew to look. A trapdoor, sealed shut with a thick metal latch. No stairs, no indication it ever opened, but the dreams said otherwise. Lila pried it open. Darkness, pure black, the kind that doesn't reflect light, but absorbs it. Her phone flashlight couldn't penetrate more than a few feet. She called out, "Hello?" No echo, just silence. And then, scrape from below. That night she didn't sleep. She pushed her couch and bookshelf over the trapdoor, taped it down, even shoved weights on top of it. But as the sun dipped behind the trees and the sky turned a shade of bruised purple, her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She drank wine, 2 glasses, then 3. Sleep found her anyway. In the dream, she stood in the living room again, but this time the boards were gone. She was standing over the hole, and something inside was crawling up. It wasn't a person, not really. It had fingers but no nails, a face but no eyes, just stretched skin where features should have been, and its mouth. That horrible, jagged gash that extended from cheek to cheek. "You opened it," it whispered. "Now you'll have to finish it." She screamed and ran, but the house kept stretching. The hallway looped. The doors disappeared, until she found herself back over the hole. It reached up and grabbed her leg. She felt it this time, really felt it. When she shot up in bed, she was already mid-scream, heart clawing against her ribs like it wanted out. 3:13 a.m., same as always. But now she could hear something. Not in the dream, in real life. A dragging sound from downstairs, and something tapping on the underside of the floorboards, like knuckles. She crept down the stairs, bat in hand, breath shallow. When she reached the living room, her stomach dropped. The weights were gone. The bookshelf toppled. The trap door, slightly ajar, just an inch, but enough to see the dark hand resting on the edge, still, like it was waiting. Lila didn't scream, not because she wasn't scared, but because the sound caught in her throat like a stone. The hand on the trapdoor edge was unmoving, pale, almost translucent. It looked dead, wrong. She inched closer, heart rattling like a trapped moth in her chest. The hand twitched, just once. She stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the fallen bookshelf. She bolted up the stairs, slammed her bedroom door, and locked it. Like a lock could stop whatever that thing was. She didn't sleep that night. She didn't dare. Instead, she sat on her bed with the lights on, bat across her lap, staring at the door, waiting for footsteps, waiting for scratching, waiting for anything. But morning came, and with it, silence. Jade arrived around noon, after Lila begged her to drive the 2 hours from Philly. She hadn't even told her the full story, just that she needed help, that something was wrong. She didn't expect Jade to believe her. She just didn't want to be alone. But when Lila pulled back the rug and showed Jade the hidden trap door, with the hand now gone, but faint claw marks visible along the edge, Jade's face went pale. "What the hell is this?" "I don't know," Lila whispered, "but something's down there. Or was down there." "No," Lila said, voice shaking. "It's still there. I can feel it." Jade crouched and examined the latch. Why would someone seal this over? There's no stairs, no crawl space, no access. This isn't even on the floor plan. That's not even the worst part, Lila said, hesitating. I've seen this in my dreams. This exact angle. You standing there, me behind you. I dreamed this last week before I met you for coffee. Jade looked up. You're freaking me out. I'm freaking myself out. That night, Jade stayed over, just in case. They sealed the trapdoor again, this time with industrial-strength adhesive from the hardware store and 2 cinder blocks on top for good measure. They took shifts sleeping. Jade dozed off around 2 a.m., and Lila took the first watch. But by 3 a.m., she couldn't stay awake. She slipped into sleep without realizing. This time, she was back in the dream house again. Same gray mist, same creaking floor, only now. She wasn't alone. The thing was sitting in the armchair, the one from her real living room. Its face was featureless, like melted wax, but the mouth, that mouth was impossibly wide. I told you not to trust the house, it said, voice like gravel dragged across metal. You're not real, she said. It smiled wider. I'm not supposed to be, but you made me real. She backed away. What do you want? It tilted its head. You know. You've always known. I'm the truth buried beneath your roots, the rot under your floor. You came here for solitude, but solitude makes room for things. She turned to run, but the floor opened beneath her like a cracked shell, and she fell into the blackness. She woke up on the floor, not in bed, not on the couch, the living room. She didn't remember going downstairs. Jade was gone. The trapdoor was wide open, no weights, no glue, no seal, just open. Lila screamed her friend's name, racing around the house. No answer. Her phone buzzed on the table with a text from Jade. Going outside for a smoke. Be back in a sec. But that text was sent 2 hours ago. The front door was still locked from the inside, and outside, no footprints, no car, no sign she'd ever been there. Just empty woods. Panicked, Lila called 911. When the sheriff arrived, she tried to explain. About the dreams, about the trapdoor, about the voice. But the moment she led them inside, the trapdoor was gone. Not sealed, gone. No cut in the wood, no disturbed floor, just smooth planks like it had never existed. Even the rug was back in place, perfectly centered. Miss, the sheriff said, eyeing her with growing concern. Are you sure you're feeling all right? I'm not crazy, she snapped. She was here. Jade was here. We opened it together. Who's Jade? My best friend. He frowned. You live alone, right? No vehicle in the driveway. No tire tracks either. Neighbors said they haven't seen anyone come or go in days. Lila blinked. What are you saying? I'm saying, he said slowly, you might need to speak with someone. She didn't argue. She just watched as the sheriff walked away, his boots leaving prints in the dirt. Jade never left prints. Lila spent the next 3 days researching. She combed property records, local lore, anything. And finally, she found something. A newspaper clipping from 1972. Local girl missing after strange dreams. 17-year-old claims house. Spoke to her before vanishing. The address, her home, the girl's name, Jade Winters. Lila dropped her coffee mug. She hadn't told Jade her last name. She never said it. Her hands trembled as she stared at the article. Jade's face stared back at her from the photo. The same face, the same sarcastic smirk, the same hoodie she wore that night. Her friend wasn't her friend. Her friend wasn't even alive. That night, Lila didn't dream. She remembered. Not just the dreams she'd had, but dreams that weren't hers. She saw the house before it was hers. Before it was even a house, she saw a circle of people chanting in the woods, burying something in the soil. Not a person, a promise, a pact, a seed planted, a dark force fed by loneliness, by guilt, by obsession. It grew under the floorboards, and it needed a name to latch on to, Jade. But now it had a new one. Lila. She woke up to the sound of something whispering from the walls. No words, just knowing. The kind of whisper that slides into your bones and roots there. She walked to the living room in a daze, pulled the rug back, and there it was, again, the trap door, back like it had never left. Her phone buzzed, a voicemail, from herself, but it was her voice in a dream, panicked, frantic. Don't open it, no matter what you see, no matter what it promises. It's not a door, it's a mirror. She stared at the trap door, hand hovering over the latch, and from below, the voice whispered, not desperate this time, but familiar. Let me out, Lila. It sounded like Jade. But it wasn't Jade. It never was. Story 2. The Mirror Man. Elliot never liked mirrors. Even as a kid, he'd avoid looking too long. Something about the way reflections seemed just a little off, like they lagged behind your thoughts, like they saw things you didn't. But it wasn't until he moved into his new apartment in Detroit that the fear became something real. The unit was cheap. Too cheap. 6th floor of an old building near Cass Avenue. Creaky floors, no elevator, and worst of all, mirrors everywhere. One in the hallway, one in the kitchen backsplash, 2 in the bathroom, and a floor-length antique standing mirror bolted to the bedroom wall. He tried to ignore them until the dreams started. The first dream was fuzzy. He stood in a dim hallway, staring into a mirror, but his reflection was wrong. Not just in posture or expression, but in the eyes. They were darker, sunken, smiling when he wasn't. As he reached out to touch the glass, his reflection didn't copy him. It reached first, a split second faster. That was enough to wake him. Cold sweat, 3:03 a.m. He brushed it off as sleep paralysis, moved on, told himself dreams meant nothing. But the next night, the reflection spoke. Let me trade places. In the waking world, Elliot avoided the bedroom mirror altogether, draped a blanket over it. But even covered, it made him uneasy. It wasn't just a fear of his reflection. It was the feeling, like someone was watching him from the other side of the glass. Quiet, patient. At work, he found himself staring into the bathroom mirror too long, waiting to see if his reflection blinked in sync. It didn't. The left eye always blinked slower. He joked about it to his co-worker, Lucas. Maybe I'm losing it. Lucas just shrugged. Sleep, bro. You look like hell. That night the dream got worse. This time he was awake in it. He knew he was dreaming. He was lucid. And yet it didn't feel like a dream at all. He stood in his bedroom. The mirror was uncovered. His reflection stared back, but it wasn't him anymore. It was gaunt, lips curled into a mocking grin, dressed in black, where Elliot wore white pajamas. Its skin looked too tight, like someone had vacuum-sealed a corpse in flesh. Trade with me, it said again. Elliot shook his head. No. The reflection laughed. You already did. He woke up, screaming. This time, the blanket had fallen off the mirror. He didn't remember removing it. The bruises started next. Tiny marks on his arms, like pressure points, thumbprints, always in the morning. He tried filming himself while sleeping, set up his phone on the nightstand. But every morning the file was corrupted. One clip survived, just a few seconds long. Elliot, sleeping peacefully. Then, his body sits up, abruptly like a puppet yanked by strings, and turns, to stare directly at the mirror. smiling. Not his smile. Someone else's. The video ended with static. He threw up. He finally contacted the landlord, asked if anyone had ever complained about the mirrors. The man laughed. That unit? You're not the first. Last guy punched out the bedroom mirror and ran in the middle of the night. Never came back for his stuff. Elliot's stomach dropped. What happened to him? No clue. Cops came. Said the guy left everything behind. Clothes, wallet, laptop. Like he just disappeared. That night, Elliot almost left. He packed a bag, keys in hand. But something pulled him back. That old, gnawing curiosity. The same one that makes you peek behind the shower curtain, even though you know it'll scare you. He stood in front of the mirror, uncovered it, slowly, and for the first time in days, he stared. The reflection was perfect, until it blinked. Only it blinked. He moved in closer, inches from the glass, studying himself, or rather the thing that wore his skin. "What do you want?" he whispered. The reflection tilted its head. "You. I'm real. You're not." Its smile stretched wider. That's what the last one said, too. Elliot backed away, but the reflection stayed still, frozen, until Elliot turned his back. That's when he heard it, tapping from inside the glass, delicate, like fingernails on crystal. He turned back, fast. The mirror was empty, no reflection, just the empty room behind him. But he wasn't in it. The next morning, Elliot woke up on the floor. His arm was bleeding, 4 neat scratches across his bicep, like fingernails had clawed their way out of him. The mirror? Cracked in the center, like something had tried to push through. He drove to Lucas's apartment and begged to crash for a few days. He didn't explain. He just needed to get away. And for 2 days, things were fine. No dreams, no scratches, no whispers, until the 3rd night, when Lucas shook him awake. "Dude, what the hell were you doing?" Elliot blinked. "What?" Lucas looked pale. "You were standing in front of the bathroom mirror, just laughing, for like 10 minutes. "I was asleep." Lucas swallowed. "I don't think you were." Later that day, Lucas showed him the security cam footage from his Nest doorbell camera. The clip from 3:03 a.m. showed Elliot stepping outside, in a full suit, barefoot, staring at the camera, smiling, and in his hand, a shard of glass. Elliot knew he couldn't run from it anymore. Whatever the reflection was, it was breaking through. The dreams weren't dreams. They were previews, prophecies, warnings, or invitations. He returned to the apartment, heart racing, hand trembling on the doorknob. When he stepped inside, everything felt off. The lighting, the smell, the dust pattern on the shelves, like someone had been living there in his absence. The mirror was uncovered again, but this time it wasn't just reflecting the room. It was showing something else. A dark version of the room, rotten wallpaper, mold creeping across the ceiling, furniture upside down, walls scrawled with symbols, and in the center of that reflection, him, trapped behind the glass, banging, screaming, mouth moving, silent, because he wasn't Elliot anymore, not out here. The mirror man was, and Elliot had been dreaming from the wrong side all along. Elliot stood paralyzed in front of the mirror. On his side, the apartment was dim but intact, cold, quiet, and still carrying the faint scent of mildew. But on the other side was ruin. The reflection didn't show his apartment. It showed a warped mockery of it, walls blistered and weeping black ooze, light bulbs swaying in unnatural circles, furniture cracked and inverted like a broken neck. And there, in the center, was him. But not him anymore. The real Elliot, his soul, maybe, trapped in the mirror world, pounding silently on the glass with bloodied fists, mouth open, screaming words he couldn't hear. His own voice, lost to the other side. On this side, the mirror man wore his face perfectly. It turned slowly, as if sensing Elliot's presence, smiled, and winked. Elliot stumbled back, nearly tripping over the carpet. That wasn't just a vision, that was a door, and the door was already open. He tried to run, out the apartment, down the stairs, onto the street, but something was wrong with his reflection now. Every surface he passed, every store window, even the puddles in the street, they didn't sink. His reflection was always watching, always smirking, sometimes mouthing something over and over again. "You're not here." When he passed by a parked car, he saw it again. His reflection wasn't walking like he was. It was standing still, inside the car window, head tilted unnaturally, waiting. He didn't go to work, didn't return home. For 2 days he couch-surfed with a different friend. He even tried a motel, but the moment he turned the bathroom light on and saw the mirror, his reflection just smiled at him like it had won. And maybe it had, because on the 3rd day, Elliot couldn't remember how he got to the lake. One moment he was in a diner, drinking bitter coffee and pretending he could function. The next, he was barefoot, ankle-deep in freezing water, staring down at his own reflection on the lake's surface. But the reflection blinked up at him, a different version, face sunken, hands reaching upward, like the lake wasn't water, but a thin layer of glass, and he was standing on the wrong side. Back in the apartment, he had no memory of returning. Elliot sat on the floor of the living room across from the mirror. This time, there was no need for words. He understood. The mirror man was never a ghost, never a demon, never a curse. He was an invitation, a deal. Every mirror is a boundary, and the man behind it? He was patient. All he needed was attention, time, fear, and sleep. The mirror man fed off awareness. The more Elliot watched him, the stronger he became, and Elliot had fed him perfectly. That night, Elliot didn't dream at all, because he wasn't asleep, not physically, but spiritually. A slow dissociation crept in like fog. He looked in the mirror and saw his hands, but they didn't feel like his. He scratched his cheek and didn't feel the sensation. He blinked and didn't remember doing it, like his body was drifting on autopilot. And the man in the mirror, he was growing clearer, more solid, less reflection, more reality. Soon, Elliot realized he was the one behind the glass now. He was dreaming through the mirror man's eyes, and the mirror man had stopped dreaming entirely. The next morning, Lucas showed up at the apartment. He hadn't heard from Elliot in days. When Elliot opened the door, Lucas did a double take. "Dude, you look different." Elliot smiled too wide. "Just sleeping better." Lucas hesitated. "You okay?" "Never better." The answer was too fast, too perfect, too smooth, like a rehearsed line. Lucas stepped inside. The place was spotless. No trace of the mirror's cracks, no blankets draped over it. It gleamed now, almost inviting. And Elliot's eyes, they were just a little too still, too shiny, too glass-like. That night, Lucas called him again. No answer. But what haunted him was the last thing he saw before leaving. Elliot, standing in front of the mirror, whispering something to his reflection. And in that reflection, his mouth wasn't moving. Only the Elliot outside the mirror spoke, and the one inside just watched. Trapped. 3 weeks later, Lucas filed a missing persons report. The police visited the apartment, found nothing wrong. Elliot's landlord said the lease had been terminated via email. Deposit refunded, no forwarding address. The officer who filed the report said Elliot had probably just moved on. But Lucas didn't believe that. He broke into the apartment himself. Weeks later, dust was settling. The place was abandoned, except the mirror, still standing, still clean, still reflecting, but not quite right. When Lucas leaned close, he could swear he saw movement behind the glass. Not his own, a man, standing perfectly still in the distance of the reflected room, face bruised, eyes pleading, mouth moving in silence. And just for a moment, Lucas thought he recognized the word forming, help. They say a mirror reflects truth, but some truths aren't meant to be seen. Some truths are just waiting for the right set of eyes, for a crack in the mind, for a curious soul to stare too long. And if you do, if you dream of mirrors, beware, because there's someone dreaming back, and he doesn't want to watch anymore. He wants to live. Story 3. Her dreams were never hers. Madison Carver had never been to Riverbend, not once in her life. But somehow she could describe it perfectly. The cracked bridge near the edge of town, the rusted-out green mailbox with a dent like a fist print, the way the riverbed looked in winter, dry, gray, and full of half-buried secrets. She'd never seen it in person, only in her dreams. It started with whispers, then flashes, then full scenes, playing out like she was inside someone else's life. The scent of wet leaves, the rush of icy water, the cold press of fingers wrapping around her throat. Every time she woke up, gasping, every time she remembered everything. At first, she thought it was just sleep deprivation. She was a college junior, after all, juggling classes, night shifts at the diner, and caring for her little brother after their mom's breakdown. She barely had time to breathe, let alone sleep deeply. But these dreams, they were too vivid, too sharp, too real, and they all followed the same girl. She never saw her face, just her hands, her thoughts, her terror. Whoever she was being chased. Madison could feel her fear like it was her own. The dreams always ended the same way. A scream, a sharp fall, then the splash of icy water, and silence. One night, Madison woke up covered in dirt, literal dirt, under her nails, on her jeans, footprints by the window like she'd climbed back into the house. Her shoes were muddy. Her phone had a photo in the camera roll she didn't remember taking, black trees, blurred movement, and a pair of headlights in the distance. She hadn't left the house. Right. That was when she started tracking the dreams in a journal. She mapped out the town from her memories, drew the roads, named the buildings, even smelled the gas station coffee from a place called Murdoch's Stop and Sip. When she Googled it, it was real. Riverbend, West Virginia. Population 2,800, and yes, there was a Stop and Sip gas station off Route 39. She didn't know anyone from there. She'd never been. But the town knew her. Madison did something she promised herself she never would. She drove there. 3 hours, 2 cups of gas station coffee, and one gnawing sense of dread later. She was standing under the decaying "Welcome to Riverbend" sign. As soon as she passed it, her skin prickled. The layout matched her drawings exactly. The red church with boarded windows, the sheriff's office with the broken step, the pharmacy with the green awning and flickering "open" sign, even though it was clearly closed. It was like walking through a dream she hadn't finished yet. She walked along the riverbed at dusk. It was dry, cracked, forgotten, but her feet moved like they knew the way. Every step echoed in her bones. Every turn felt rehearsed. Then she stopped, by a crooked willow tree at the bend, its roots tangled around a half-buried bicycle tire. Her heart dropped. She knelt beside a flat patch of dirt, touched it. Cold. A memory crashed into her like a wave. A girl, running, breath ragged, hands scraped, eyes wild, someone shouting behind her, then screaming, a stumble, the crushing slam of a rock, the weight of cold water swallowing her whole. Madison gasped and fell back. The flash vanished, but she remembered, not like a story she read, like it happened to her. She stood, shaking, eyes darting. That's when she saw the man across the riverbed, standing at the edge of the trees, just watching. He didn't move, didn't wave, just stood there, too far away to make out his face. But something about him felt wrong, like she'd seen him before, like he'd seen her. She returned to her car, heart hammering. The man never followed. She slept in a motel that night. But the dream came anyway, more vivid than ever. She was the girl again, running barefoot through the woods, clothes torn, breathing in sobs, mud in her mouth, blood on her arms. She was trying to get away from someone, a man. She couldn't see his face, but she knew his name. Danny. The girl screamed it, pleading, panicked, betrayed. Danny, please. Then came the shove, the stone, the water, darkness. Madison woke up screaming in the motel bed. There were bruises on her arms, matching the ones from the dream. She knew what had happened now. Someone had killed the girl, and for some reason, Madison was remembering it, not imagining, not dreaming, inheriting it. She looked in the mirror, pale, trembling, eyes rimmed red. Whose memories were these, and why did they feel like hers? Back in Riverbend, she went to the library, asked about old missing person cases. The librarian, a frail woman with cloudy eyes, stiffened when Madison mentioned the riverbed. You don't want to dig up the past, sweetie. I think it's already digging me. After some coaxing and a $20 bribe, the librarian handed her an old file. Delilah Crow. Age 19. Disappeared 2002. Last seen near the riverbend. Her boyfriend at the time, Danny Morris. Questioned. Released. No charges. Delilah's body was never found. But the dreams weren't wrong, because Madison had seen it happen. The more she read, the sicker she felt. Delilah liked painting her nails blue. Madison had woken up 3 times this week with blue nail polish on her fingers. Delilah had a butterfly scar behind her left ear from a childhood accident. Madison had felt that scar in the shower 2 nights ago. Just a faint bump, a spot she never noticed before. She was losing herself, or becoming someone else. She wasn't dreaming about Delilah. She was dreaming as her. And now, Danny knew. That night, Madison's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You should have stayed away. Then came a second. Some things are meant to stay buried. She froze. In her motel room, she locked the door, dragged a dresser in front of it, turned every light on, then checked her car dashcam. It auto-recorded when someone came near. And there, time-stamped just an hour earlier, was a man in a gray hoodie, staring directly into the lens, face hidden, but on his neck, a faded tattoo, a butterfly. The next morning, Madison sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles went white. She hadn't slept, couldn't, not with the texts, not after seeing that man on the dash cam, the man with the butterfly tattoo, the same butterfly Delilah had once carved into her sketchbooks, the one that marked the end of every dream. Danny. Madison wasn't a detective. She was a college student from another state, losing sleep and feeling like her skin didn't quite belong to her anymore. But she had something no investigator ever had. Delilah. Or whatever part of her was waking up through Madison's bones. She went to the police station, spoke to a worn-out sergeant with coffee breath and eyes that screamed, "Don't bring ghosts into my office." "I want to report a threat," she told him. "I think a man named Danny Morris is watching me. He followed me last night." The sergeant blinked. You from around here? No. Then why are you messing with names that belong in the past? He's dangerous. He's also never been charged with anything. Hasn't lived in Riverbend for 10 years. Madison leaned in, voice low. Delilah Crow. The sergeant's eyes flinched. She was my cousin. Madison lied. He didn't question it. After some pressure, she got an old address. Danny's childhood home, abandoned for years. She drove there before she could talk herself out of it. The house sat like a wound on the edge of town. All broken windows and sagging porch. Vines crawling up its ribs like veins. Her fingers trembled as she stepped inside. The air was stale and heavy. The walls warped with time. Every creak under her shoe sounded like a whisper. In the living room, she found newspaper clippings. Some were about Delilah's disappearance. Others were about other girls, all around Delilah's age, all gone within 3 years of each other. Different towns, no bodies, no suspects, no connections, except Danny. And suddenly Madison knew. Delilah wasn't the only one speaking through her. This wasn't about one ghost. It was a graveyard of voices. Upstairs, she found a small closet with something scratched into the wall. She pushed the door open slowly. Inside, in uneven carving. You remember. Do you? Madison backed out, heart thudding. As she turned toward the stairs, she saw the photo frame, face down, covered in dust. She picked it up and wiped the glass. It was a picture of Danny, younger, smiling in front of a lake, with a girl who looked exactly like. Her breath caught. Not Delilah, herself. But the photo was old, faded, from another time. The girl wasn't Madison. It was Delilah. But the resemblance was unmistakable. The house groaned. She spun around and saw him, at the bottom of the stairs, Danny, older now, eyes sunken, arms crossed. "Been waiting for you," he said, calm as death. Madison froze. "I don't know you," she lied, voice thin. "You do," he said, stepping up the first stair. "Even if you don't remember the last time you screamed my name." Her feet moved before she thought. She bolted into the nearest room, an old bathroom with a boarded window. Danny's footsteps followed, slow and measured. She locked the door, backed up, then heard him chuckle on the other side. "You shouldn't have come back, Dee." Her vision swam. Reality folded. Suddenly she wasn't in the bathroom anymore. She was back in the woods, running, branches slashing her arms. The cold slap of river mist on her face, a voice behind her, his voice, calling out, soft and coaxing. "Come on, Delilah, don't make me chase you." She tripped, her head cracked against a stone. Blood blurred her vision. She turned. He stood over her. Then, splash, cold water, silence. She snapped back into the bathroom as the door slammed open. Danny burst through, grabbing her by the throat, eyes wild. "You were supposed to stay gone," he hissed. "They never find them when I put them in the water. That's the rule." She struggled, but something inside her shifted. Not fear, fury. A strength that wasn't hers surged up. She grabbed a shard of broken mirror from the sink and slashed it across his arm. He screamed, let go. She ran, down the stairs, out the door, into the woods. He followed, screaming curses behind her. "You're dead. I killed you." The riverbed. It called to her like a siren. She didn't think. She knew. She ran to the crooked willow and dropped to her knees, clawing at the dirt. Danny was right behind her, yelling, bleeding, panting. But her hands moved faster. She scraped until nails cracked, until her fingers bled, until she found it. Bone, a fragment of a jaw, then a necklace, blue beads, Delilah's, the one from the dreams, the one she wore that night. She held it up like a torch. Danny stopped. His face fell. His knees buckled. He whispered, "No." The police arrested him the next morning. They found 6 bodies total beneath the willow tree. 6 girls, all buried over 3 years. Madison told them she'd had a feeling. She didn't explain the dreams, didn't tell them she'd lived their deaths, didn't say she still woke up every night gasping with lungs full of river water. They wouldn't understand. But she knew. She wasn't just a witness. She was a vessel, a second chance. And though Danny was gone, the girls weren't. She still felt them, still heard them whisper when she stood near mirrors or walked past still ponds. Thank you, over and over again. And some nights, she dreamed again. Not of the river, not of death, but of freedom, of dancing barefoot in the woods, of laughing with voices that once went silent, because the past doesn't stay buried forever. Not when the dead finally find someone willing to listen. So, what if your next dream isn't a dream at all? What if it's a memory, a warning, or worse, a door? Tonight, we followed a woman haunted by voices beneath her floor, a man whose reflection stopped reflecting, and a girl who carried someone else's death inside her mind. These weren't just nightmares. They were messages, and sometimes the mind is the only place the truth survives. If you made it to the end, consider yourself lucky. You woke up. But some people, they never do. If you enjoyed these stories, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And remember, next time you close your eyes, you might not be alone. Sleep tight.